From being the Man of Steel to being the world's most skilled detective, Henry Cavill has done it all. And he's about to do more because he might be in Sherlock Holmes 3, alongside the OG Sherlock Holmes, Robert Downey Jr. According to rumors, Robert Downey Jr.'s Sherlock Holmes 3 is in negotiations to include Henry Cavill. It's still too early to say what the role is or if this is going to happen at all. Let's not forget that Cavill returned to DC only to be sacked again. So just for the sake of conversation, let's assume Cavill actually does manage to be in a Sherlock Holmes movie with RDJ. What role would he play? It's anybody's guess, really. Of course, because Downey's playing the part, he won't be playing the detective. But why not? It's worth pointing out here that Henry Cavill has portrayed Sherlock Holmes in 2 movies. This puts him on par with Robert Downey Jr. in terms of these crime-solving movies.
Exactly. These clues have been planted for us to find, to mislead us from the true villain. This is all being staged.
So it's hard to ignore Cavill's Sherlock Holmes portrayal in Enola Holmes. But with this new sequel, I doubt it'll be Cavill who takes on the lead role, or iconic roles like Moriarty or Mycroft Holmes, either for that matter. Now, multiversal storylines are hot nowadays, with Spider-Man No Way Home and The Flash integrating several versions of the same characters into a single plot. I do have my doubts about that happening though. Still, can we take a minute to imagine Henry Cavill and Robert Downey Jr. as 2 Sherlock Holmes variations that cross paths, with a story within a bizarre steampunk parallel reality? Now that would be cool, but it's all just fan fiction, honestly.
Considerable difference to me, having someone with me on whom I can thoroughly rely. Always nice to see you, Watson.
Things like this only happen within the MCU. So here's another possibility. Cavill could play a new villain because the production team is already looking for a Captain of Industry kind of character, and it does seem to fit Cavill's overall personality, which is ironic considering that this man also used to be a goody two-shoes Superman. The fact of the matter is, he has played villains in the past, and very good ones too.
You won't let me live. You won't let me die. The world needs you.
Like his role as August Walker in Mission Impossible Fallout, so I can definitely see him play that sort of character again. But then again, he could also be the lead in some Sherlock Holmes spin-off, especially because RDJ and his team are already planning spin-offs. Or he could just be in the sequel, since Cavill and the director Guy Ritchie have worked before in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. I, for one, would want to see a movie starring both Henry Cavill and Robert Downey Jr. I mean, look at it this way. They've both been Sherlock Holmes and superheroes. Not to mention, they're both very commanding personalities on screen. So, I'm curious to see what they might be like together on screen. As of right now, nothing is confirmed, with Cavill currently filming The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. He's also working on his first Amazon Studios show based on the miniature war game Warhammer 40,000 for Amazon. Little birdies are talking about his potential casting as Spider UK in the MCU too. So whether or not he's in Sherlock Holmes, we'll get to see Henry Cavill on screen either way. Good things come to those who wait, right? And yet, when a movie or a franchise shows incredible potential for success, Hollywood usually waits decades to release it. An example of how even the biggest box office hits, both critically and commercially, can still miss the growth radar is Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes duology. Of course, some projects like Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes are better left alone, especially when the original story is so good. But Arthur Conan Doyle's mythology is essentially a more modern take on Guy Ritchie's version, so it wouldn't hurt at all to have a third movie after a masterpiece like A Game of Shadows to round off the story. And it's not the first time this has happened. At the end of the day, a Holmes is a Holmes forever, and that logic is valid to every Holmes adaptation, best or worst. Surprisingly, there are 51 versions of the character, which includes Robert Downey Jr., Benedict Cumberbatch, Sir Ian McKellen, Henry Cavill, and Johnny Lee Miller. Guy Ritchie directed the first 2 Sherlock Holmes movies, Sherlock Holmes in 2009 and Sherlock Holmes A Game of Shadows in 2011, both of which starred Robert Downey Jr. as the detective and Jude Law as Watson. Unfortunately, there hasn't been a follow-up movie to celebrate Holmes' return after the awful Reichenbach Fall events, despite the fast-paced storytelling and beautiful cinematography Ritchie has used to show old London. Now, with the rising buzz around Sherlock Holmes 3, a few details about the 3 prequel have surfaced. Guy Ritchie won't be directing the movie, but he will still be attached as a producer. Instead, the project will be taken over by Dexter Fletcher, the master of musical biopics. The threequel, which was supposed to be out in 2020 but was postponed because of the epidemic, would now probably be released by the end of 2023. Now, this sequel could potentially pave the way for RDJ's Sherlock Holmes universe plan.
I agree it's not my best disguise, but I had to make do.
Robert Downey Jr. and Susan Downey spoke with Stephanie Mehta, editor-in-chief of Fast Company. They discussed the plans of their Team Downey production company to build a brand new Sherlock Holmes universe. And get this, apparently they're planning to use everything they learned from Marvel president Kevin Feige over the past 10 years. Sure, they could just make a third film and be done with it, but RDJ believes there's potential to expand on this franchise and create spin-offs for some of the third movie's characters. Plus, it wouldn't hurt to test the waters and see how this is going to be received by fans, right? They definitely have a grand plan all thought up, but they'll soon realize that it's easier said than done, especially considering how a huge studio like Warner Brothers failed to create a successful DC universe in their first run. But then again, the MCU wasn't built in a day, neither was Rome, so patience is going to be their best friend here. To be fair though, we have all these superhero universes, but we've never really had anybody try out a mystery verse anywhere in Hollywood. So who knows? Maybe RDJ is onto something here. And honestly, nobody would hate it if Henry Cavill returned as Sherlock in an Enola Holmes spin-off. Because you see, while the idea behind Sherlock Holmes 3 was rusting away like an old hunk of metal in your attic, Benedict Cumberbatch was the only one who kept Sherlock Holmes alive. Until of course when Henry Cavill stepped in and breathed in new life into the character. Heck, if it wasn't for him, we probably would have forgotten about Sherlock Holmes after 2017. Needless to say, Netflix is in the perfect position to set up an Enola Holmes spin-off TV series or a full-on movie. It's also interesting how different the character is from the other two main interpretations over the past 10 years. Cavill portrays the character more discreetly and calmly than Robert Downey Jr., who expressed his quirkiness. Instead of the loud energy that has come before him, he radiates a sort of arrogant presence with this. Observe how Cavill prefers to be passive and emotionally detached, except for a few instances where he gets to show a buried compassion. Meanwhile, Cumberbatch's version could either be incredibly hostile or have meltdowns left, right, and center. So there's definitely something unique going around Henry Sherlock, and I for one would love to see more of it. But it's a very close battle between RDJ and Henry Sherlock. Now I think everybody can agree that there hasn't been another Sherlock movie with the character being its main focus like it was with RDJ. But despite all the excitement revolving around RDJ's version, some fans think Henry Cavill is the most suitable actor to play Sherlock in the threequel. That's all I have for you about Henry Cavill's involvement in Sherlock Holmes 3.